number 5 tonight is, in light of last week's conversation, or the last time we had a show, is this what's up? That's an interesting prompt because I don't know what it really means. Let's go to the link that came with it. Takes us to a tweet from African World History. The tweet says, Pan-African Federation between Mali and Burkina Faso. Quote, both nations are battling jihadist insurgencies and are run by juntas who have turned away from France, the former colonial ruler. So this came with a video. Let's take a listen, and then we'll discuss.
Burkina Faso's prime minister, in a visit to neighboring Mali this week, has suggested the two countries form a federation to boost their economic clout. His office said the two Sahel neighbors are battling international sanctions after military coups toppled civilian governments.
Sovereignty, liberté de choix de ses
sovereignty, freedom of choice of its partners, stubborn defense of the interests of the Malian people.
Je suis certain que ces principes-là sont partagés par tous les peuples.
I'm sure that these principles are shared by all the countries that want to take charge of themselves and our brothers and friends in Burkina Faso. I am convinced must have similar demands.
Des exigences similaires.
The two countries are also at war with Islamist militants and have cut ties with former colonial ruler France. A federation would see them forge closer security ties and reduce dependence on their neighbors. We're ready to share our experience, our ideas, and enrich ourselves with the ideas and experiences of others, especially our brothers and sisters with whom we have the same goal. A past effort to forge a federation in Francophone West Africa, a bid to bring together Mali, Senegal, Burkina Faso, and Benin in the 1960s, failed to materialize.
I'm going to play it one more time, as I usually do, just to make sure everyone catches it.
Burkina Faso's prime minister, in a visit to neighboring Mali this week, has suggested the two countries form a federation to boost their economic clout. His office said the two Sahel neighbors are battling international sanctions after military coups toppled civilian governments.
Sovereignty, liberté de choix de ses
sovereignty, freedom of choice of its partners, stubborn defense of the interests of the Malian people.
Je suis certain que ces principes-là sont partagés par tous les peuples.
I'm sure that these principles are shared by all the countries that want to take charge of themselves and our brothers and friends in Burkina Faso. I am convinced must have similar demands.
Des exigences similaires.
The two countries are also at war with Islamist militants and have cut ties with former colonial ruler France. A federation would see them forge closer security ties and reduce dependence on their neighbors. We're ready to share our experience, our ideas, and enrich ourselves with the ideas and experiences of others, especially our brothers and sisters with whom we have the same goal. A past effort to forge a federation in Francophone West Africa, a bid to bring together Mali, Senegal, Burkina Faso, and Benin in the 1960s, failed to materialize.
All right. Should be talking. Number 5 is, in light of last week's conversation. I guess the last week's conversation, I think we talked about France being run off. I think that's what we was talking about. Tanzan, do you remember the link here?
Sort of. I think they will say that Mali, or was it Chad, had kicked out had kicked out the French. So it seems as if there's more cooperation between the neighbors. I think maybe that's the link. If it's not, you may correct me.
I'm guessing that's what it is. So what did you see in this video in terms of the prompt?
Okay, so they're saying that it's a continuation. So when you kick, once you've built the cat, now it's time for you to work together. I think it's a good step. They should try to work towards building their
to boost their economic clout.
Yes, as you said, boost the economic clout. Yeah, they should start trading with each other firstly, because they know that the consequences of turning your back on any of those countries is there are going to be consequences, sanctions. They're going to prevent you from trading on the international market. So even before you do that, you have to start making repairing and promoting your connections with your neighbors. That's why even when I talk about Black Americans and Africans, we should start by making those kinds of connections. You're not just going to go into an empty space and build your life. You're going to go where people are, and those people, how are you going to relate with them, and so on. How are you going to overcome your differences? So I think that African countries, we have respected the borders too much. We still pay too much reverence to what was given to us and not what we created. So we can't, necessarily remove the borders, but we can work, we can work against them. So if they're honest and serious about it, I support them. I think that there should be more regional cooperations amongst all the different states, and they should have multiple then multiple cooperations between regions. So once the EAC has enough unity or enough cooperation, then they can work with the KWAZ and with the South African. I don't know what's their federation, but yeah, I think that this is a great start, and they should start reaching out and holding hands towards each other's borders, rather than always waiting for some people to come and rescue them on the international market.
Appreciate that.
And sorry, and just one last thing, and not just the leaders making a show of it. I think they should also encourage the local people to also travel amongst the countries. They should have teachers going to other places and students interacting and so on. And so this making connections and relations should be paramount for both the leadership and the people on the ground. So yeah.
Thank you for that, Tan. Carl, in light of last week's conversation, is this what's up? What say you to what you saw in the video?
Well, I definitely think it's what's up. I think to Tanzan's point, we understand that the African continent was divided by the European powers in the Council of Berlin in, I believe, 1885, and they carved up the continent to facilitate the exploitation of Africa. It wasn't for the benefit of the Africans, but to enable their exploitation of the continent. So the fact that we're sticking with the same borders that were imposed upon us by the Europeans to facilitate their exploitation is crazy to me. We need to redraw that map. So I think it's important that they are drawing closer together as people, but they got to be ready for the backlash, because France doesn't think anything of killing a president or a prime minister, or overthrowing a government, or even funding these Islamic terrorists, which I do believe that these Islamic terrorists are probably funded by the West to encourage destabilization in these African countries, just like how the Americans funded the Taliban in Afghanistan. They paid for their training, and they gave them weapons and everything else like that. How they funded the right wing military juntas in Nicaragua and Guatemala. So whenever there is a movement of the people towards their liberation, you're going to have blowback from the Western powers, because they see this as a threat. The United States, the Western world, doesn't want any threat to their hegemony, so they're going to go in hard. Even little countries like Grenada, how they went into Grenada. Grenada was not a threat to anybody, but the fact they can't stand the threat of a good example. So Burkina Faso and Mali drawing together, that's good. There needs to be more of that. We're not going to have any type of revolution, any type of improvement in our condition until Africa improves. Because like Marcus Garvey said, where goes Africa, there goes the race. Chinese people didn't get respected until China itself became a world power. And I think that until we see that, we're going to continue to get disrespected and stepped on as African people all over the world. So I think it's a good step in the right direction. They just got to be ready for the smoke, because it's coming. And I'll pass the mic.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Carl. Zuli, is this what's up?
I don't know how to answer this because I wasn't here last week. So I'm gonna pass on that one. I don't know. I don't know. I didn't see the one prior to the thing. And I really don't. Are they saying that they're gonna do business with each other instead of the West? Is that what they're saying?
Yeah, they're trying to federate those. They're trying to join into a federation between those countries, sharing resources, and like Tan said, like Tan said, hopefully allowing the exchange of labor for people to travel for opportunities between those countries. I mean, you could just comment to what you saw in the video. You don't have to talk about
I mean, if that's the case, that's what they want to do. I will like that's always a good thing to be able to trade and do business with your own people, but they have to be ready for the blowback because nobody's gonna take that lightly. So we'll see if there's a coup. If they're gonna send the economic hitmen. Let's see what happens. If they're not just blowing smoke up our ass, we'll see. 10 years, what this goes to. So, but it's always a good thing to do business with your own people. Keep the money, at least let the money circulate in your countries for a longer period of time.
You know, going back to that Tariq Nasheed thing, one of the things Tariq did, which is always telling, OJ Simpson did something similar. When OJ got in a problem, he ran to the church and was seen up in the church worshiping and all this type of shit. Tariq ran to San Eder. And something Tariq does that I really hate, like really hate it. I hate to hear, and Tariq's not the only one who does it, but he pushes it so much, right? This idea that the white man won't allow you to do anything. Like you can't get away from him. You can't do nothing without his approval. I think we got to get off of that, man. We have to get off of this idea that if we do this white man is going to come through and with the sanctions and yeah, you know what? A part of you doing these things, a part of you joining in a federation or whatever you're doing towards self-determination is understanding that, yeah, these folks are going to try to muck it up. But you have to have your plan set up in such a way where they can't really do too much of that mucking up. That's one of the things the Caribbean has to do. The Caribbean really needs to sit down and come up with 100, 200, 300-year plan. How do we get out from under the shadow of this empire? Right? Like I mentioned it one day. I know there was a brother I've seen in different chats, Philip Lindsay. He said, well, they'll take you right off the SWIFT and they won't send the boats. Yeah, that's a part of it, though. A part of it is understanding that these folks are going to counter with their bullshit, but we have a plan for that, too. You know, we can't be so afraid of the boogeyman that if we do anything, we try to do something, this guy's going to show up and he's going to just destroy us. Like, that's a part of it. You're supposed to be planning for that, too. But I digress. Bwana Gaziki, what say you? Is this what's up?
No, I in terms of the sentiments of the panelists, you know, I agree. You know, for the most part, I agree with all the sentiments of the panelists. And I agree with their sentiments as well. I think that we should make plans for anything that may occur, because you're always going to have external enemies. You know, you're always going to have people who would not want to see the progress of Black people coming together to do something constructive. So I think that there are things that you only could put things in place, but you can't live in this idea of scarcity. Or what if this happens and these guys coming in was tried to I mean, Africa has seen a history of it. You know, if I was in front of these leaders, the only thing I would do is first I would remind them of Blaise Compaoré and Thomas Sankara. I would remind them of Mobutu and Patrice Lumumba. I would remind Francophone Africa or Africa these cases, or how the war strategy is set. You know, how they play is they're gonna appeal to someone at that dinner table. Then they're gonna go in his ear and say, "Hey, man, you want to be president? These clowns, you know, are we gonna promise you all the treasures and the gifts of the world if you were to, you know, take the place of this president?" That war strategy has not changed. That's been the case. That's how they play. So understanding that, you ensure your internal security, and make sure that when they do come, even if they was to appeal to your best friend, there are some things in place to ensure that this guy can't get to me. Even if that's the case, you have a big target on your back, and they're gonna come. But you still have to live. You still have to function. You still have to do things within your society. You have to have some balls about you. Be brave. You know what I mean? We need to exert ourselves in the world as men. Even if that means death itself. So, and you have to take chances. Any person who comes before an audience of black people know because of the condition that we under, it's a risk that you take, especially when you hold any kind of leadership position. Because how we condition in our minds, we don't accept black leadership off of the face of it. We all automatically see it as incompetent because of how we've been conditioned. So, there are always going to be people who look just like me and you who is going to try to undermine that. So understand that these things exist, but still look towards building some infrastructure that will be able to supersede you, even if you was to die. The institutions that you would have put in place will ensure the progression and moving forward of your people, even if your external enemies was to come in to try to undermine that. And I believe that this is the reason why black men should come together and converse and talk and plan and strategize. See, we always are fearful of external strategizing, forgetting the fact that we could have strategized too. We could play offensively on this global game board too. We could play defensively and offensively. Even as pawns on a chessboard, a pawn could be a very strategic and powerful chess piece if he plays the game of chess right. Global chess. So I think that it is something that I applaud, and I think that these men should think like men and strategize as men and moving forward and move boldly. Even in the face of harm and death, move boldly. Take the risk. No big risk, no big reward. So, but I'll stop there.
I was talking with the mic muted. Yeah, I applaud what you just said. I share that same sentiment, man. This idea, again, going back to Tariq and Sarnetta, where you're talking about where can you go to get away from this white guy? Because the question was along the lines of heading back to Africa on some repatriation type shit. And this guy, true to brand, cowardly and all that shit, he says, where can you go to get away? The white man has dominated Africa, so you just go. No, man, get out of here. Get out of here. We could plan too. We could strategize too. We could do some stuff ourselves. We ain't gotta always be afraid of the threat of this white boy. Does anyone else want to add anything to the conversation here?
Let me just say. Go ahead, brother. No, I was gonna say, when I bring up the West, I don't want to discourage anybody because we got to confront this monster no matter how we look at it. It's not a matter of us being scared. Just to realize that this is a threat we're going up against. It's not going to be easy. It wasn't an easy situation to get in where we're at, and it's not going to be easy to get out. But it has to be done. If we want to see our people prosper and continue, we got to confront this beast. And that's all I wanted to say. I just bring up the threats only to understand what we're up against from a realistic perspective. We're not just going to move to Africa. We're going to build a superpower and everything will be okay. We got to be able to confront this monster. So, not to say to be scared, just know what we up against, and just we got to be ready to do it. Like Malcolm X said, if you're not prepared to die, take the word freedom out your vocabulary.
Bonner?
No, I understand what the brother is saying, and for me, if man created the institution of globalism as he has done, there's an echo coming back for some reason. If man has created this institution that we function under, we could reinstitute this institution. You know what I mean? Because if a man created it, a man is not perfect, so there's always going to be flaws and cracks in his building of it. So whether we decide to go along, to get along, and be complicit, or we try to figure out a way to create something within this environment for ourselves where it could be protected, where it could be functional, and where it could be productive. We as men should have the ability to do that as well, because there's no man that exists on this planet who is greater than better or better than me. No man. No man. You know, and I get that down to my core. And I think that all men should have that belief and thinking. You know, we are competitors. We are competitors. Point blank, period. You know, so this whole idea of supremacy and dominating, or woe is me and me, nothing I can do about it. I don't think like that. My brain don't work like that. I go find and figure out a way how I gonna get out of the situation. That's how my brain works. You know what I mean? And like, this goes back to the whole Gavi philosophy. If you have no confidence in yourself, you are twice defeated in a race of life. If you start from the premise ain't nothing could be done to solve this problem, then you lose already. And I don't start there. That's just me. Maybe I'm fanciful in my thinking, but that's the premise I start at. You know what I mean? No man is better or greater than me. And it all starts with self, and it all starts with your mind. But I'll stop there.
I appreciate that. You know what? I'm going to drop Shoot the Breeze topic number 6, but we're going to do a station ID break real quick. Shoot the Breeze topic number 6 is going to be, what would be an argument against this that is not hypothetical in nature? So someone wants us to be more grounded in this next topic. So I'll do station ID. We'll be back on the other side. Stay tuned.
You are listening to the Bitter